You're listening to the Believe in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
We welcome you to another edition of Believe in Giants, presented by FanDuel. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks. The Giants take on the Minnesota Vikings. Kicks off Christmas week. Carl, did you get all that Christmas shopping finished yet?
Yeah, it's gifting I'm done with for the most part. And I'm still getting Christmas decorations. I'm still getting Amazon boxes and Temu boxes and Target stuff, looking at the tree, adding something and all kinds of other stuff. But for the most part, I am set.
All right. There's always that one last minute thing that you got to get done. But
yeah.
It is what it is, right?
It is. I got to take care of my parking attendants. That's it. That's my last. And I'm just waiting on a total number for the amount of people that are working there.
Got to protect your wheels. Your wheels. I packed up a big box this morning with everything wrapped that's going to New Jersey for a family and my sons and everything else. So rather than try to schlep through the airport, wielding bags of gifts and trying to fit things in overhead and having airlines people tell you that you're past your limit of carry-ons. I said, let's put it all in one big box and let's send it on up.
That's right.
Meet me at the Giants facility. So let's talk about this game here, Carl. The Vikings, they beat up on the Redskins. Oh, my God, I can't believe I just said that. They beat up on the Commanders 2 weeks ago, and then they virtually knocked Dallas out of the postseason last week. J.J. McCarthy in his last two starts, it's been fantastic, 66%, 8.8 an attempt, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. They're averaging 32.5 points a game in their last two, and they get the Giants' defense, which has not been able to stop anybody.
Bob, I always say the get right game, but this is the character from the movie Life, Mr. Can't Get Right. Are the Giants going to be the character Mr. Can't Get Right, or is this their opportunity to build on something that we saw last week defensively, but we didn't see it enough? We saw them hold Washington to 3 completions on third down. We saw them hold Washington to under 4 yards a carry, rushing the football. All improvements from all year, basically. And it didn't really show in the box score. But can they build on that and impact the way that Minnesota and J.J. McCarthy are operating?
I was looking at Justin Jefferson's numbers. In the last 3 games, he has a total of 6 catches for 37 yards. He's at a career low 59 yards receiving per game, career low 4.7 receptions per game, a career low 12.6 receiving yards per catch, and a career low 2 touchdowns. It's hard to believe. Now they have Addison and they have Naylor and they have Hawkinson and they got other guys, but I mean, he must be licking his chops this week.
Well, looking at the Giants and the opportunities that teams have had against them, he's looking to get right. He needs that signature Justin Jefferson game. The Giants, on the other hand, can still impact what that looks like for Justin Jefferson. They have had inconsistency at the quarterback position, Minnesota. The Giants have obviously, they are what they are in terms of their big plays allowed and things of that nature. But again, if they were to look at the positive of last week's loss, it was that They got pressure on the quarterback. Abdul Carter was disruptive. They had a plan for him. He executed that plan. They can have a say-so in this, but it still comes down to those gotta-have-it moments. Can they execute when they gotta have it? All the good things. You look at the stat sheet and you kind of rub your head and you say, how did they lose this game? And it's always the key moments. So can they come through in the key moments?
You know, last week they generated a couple of turnovers. They have not been good forcing turnovers. Minnesota, as I mentioned, the league leading 27 giveaways. You know, part of that gotta have it moment, right, is how many times have we seen this year an opportunity to get a pick, it gets dropped, and then it lets a drive continue. You know, the last time they made a play on defense that really affected a football game as far as turnovers are concerned was Cordell Flott's interception against Jalen Hurts when Philadelphia was driving. It was a gotta-have-it moment. Philadelphia was right back in the football game at that point, and Flott made the interception, and really kind of changed the whole tenor of the way the rest of that game played out. Can they do that this week? Yeah, the way it looks, Minnesota is going to give the Giants some opportunities to do this. Do the Giants capitalize?
Can you go through the areas statistically that Minnesota is just in the ballpark with the Giants where there's opportunity waiting to happen for the Giants?
Well, you know, there's all of them. I mean, there's don't let them get their run game going. Don't let them get the yards per play up. I mean, and you know, it's interesting because Minnesota's offensive numbers over the course of the season are just so poor. And then you look at the Giants offensively, and there's a lot to like about their numbers this year. Whether it's scoring touchdowns on opening drives, their yards per play, but defensively, Carl, you know, you look at it, 5.6 yards per carry. You can't let them get going in this game because there's one thing Minnesota is good at is when they do hand it off, they run it at 4.5 yards per carry.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm going to be interested to see. The other thing will be interesting to see what the weather is like. I mean, the early forecast is that it's going to be relatively mild and sunny on Sunday.
Yeah.
But the Vikings have become a dome team, right? Because they play inside. Sure, they got to play the Packers and they have to play the Bears, but depending on when they play them during the course of the season. And then Detroit is another division team, which is inside. So will there be some blustery conditions that wreak havoc on J.J. McCarthy, who, let's face it, he played at Michigan. It's not like it was warm weather there.
Yeah, I mean, we can toss the weather out, Bob, unless we've got the winds of the Meadowlands, like last week. Minnesota, they play an NFL schedule. The Giants play an NFL schedule. They both have to play in the same weather. I want to see if the Giants are going to build on the good and find a way to focus on eliminating the bad, so that they could do what their coach said or have the feeling that their coach wants them to have, and that's the feeling of victory, those smiles on their faces. But it's up to them to be able to do that. Minnesota is not going to be easy. Offensively, the Giants will have to be very overly communicative, pre-snap and post-snap. They give you a lot of looks. They bring the kitchen sink sometimes. Sometimes they show the kitchen sink. They got very smart players on their defense. That's why they're able to give you all the looks that they give you. But in doing so, they will give you some opportunities. Brian Flores will at times leave the middle of the field wide open. They'll have guys milling around a line of scrimmage, and the ball is snapped, and they're just standing there, both guys looking at one guy. So you've got to be very smart pre and post snap. Quarterback, receivers, everybody has to be on the same page. They got to know their keys. And they've got to play with pace. Now, if the offense plays with pace, that eliminates a lot of the different, jumping around that these defenses can do to you, because they got to get set too. So I'm interested to see how this works out for Jaxson Dart. Now, he's seen some pressure teams. He's seen Spagnuolo, and he was able to handle that relatively well. This is probably a different level than Spags. I mean, this is a defensive coordinator that will line them all up at the line of scrimmage and dare you to try to figure them out.
Yeah, I mean, according to Next Gen Stats, they have a blitz rate of 48.9%, which is the most in the National Football League. They're number 2 in red zone, number 5 in passing yards allowed. You can run the ball against them a little bit. Mm-hmm. But do you think that's the strategy, Carl, to hurry up to the line and, A, don't let them substitute, but B, Harrison Smith, the veteran safety, he'll line up at the line, then he sprints back. Like, he's all over the place. It's Polamalu-ish. To kind of take some of that stuff away from them by, playing at a tempo and, snapping the ball quickly and not necessarily huddling up and all that other stuff.
I think that's the way you have to play a defense that likes to show a lot of looks and defensive fronts, and secondary is all around the line of scrimmage. You play fast, it does one thing, it makes them declare, but it also, you have to kind of declare too. Because the more moving around you're doing to see who's going to follow who in man or zone coverage, they get to play around with you too. So you have to declare yourself where you're going to be by playing with pace. The key there is running the football. The key is, if you can start to hit some runs on them, your passing opportunities are going to come.
Carl, obviously you played for a great defensive coordinator in Bill Belichick in your time in the National Football League. How much fun do you think the Vikings defensive players have when they go into the meeting each week with the presentation of what the defensive coach wants to do to sort of attack an opponent? I got to think that guys are anxious to get in and must be excited every week, because he does do a lot of different things and he creates a lot of at least illusions. Yeah. But it's got to be fun, man, as opposed to just, hey, this is what we run.
It is. But when you run those types of defenses, you got to have smart players, players who know from down to down what their responsibilities are. And that's when it becomes fun, because you can move around all over the place as long as you get back to where you're supposed to be. And then the players can get somewhat creative, because the coach calls it. They start moving around and they're like, okay, before the ball snap, I got to get to the flat, or I got to get back to the middle of the field. That's the fun part about it. Getting run on or getting gashed because you weren't where you're supposed to be is not the fun part. And then it makes the defensive coordinator's job that much more difficult, and he has to back out of some of his stuff. You can hit him with some plays. I think the Giants definitely have to lean into their 12 personnel. Don't get too happy with the pass. And I think Mike Kafka has done a great job of making adjustments throughout the game. We looked at it last week against Washington, and we kept saying, Washington's not very good against the run, And then all of a sudden, the Giants started running the football, got the train back on schedule, and they were able to get some things done. They just can't move away from that. As tempting as it can be sometimes, the run game sets the tempo for the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, they ran for 146 yards last week when it was all said and done. It'll be interesting to see maybe whatever adjustments they make as far as their inside the 5 play calling. You and I were not wild about the sort of the trick play on first down or whatever, the pop-up pass. And then Jaxson Dart. I mean, I'm excited to see what he does against his defense. He's stacking information. I mean, at the end of the day, right, he's ahead of J.J. McCarthy as far as experiences that he's had because he's had more starts already this year, hasn't had to deal with injuries. Obviously, the concussion situation was a setback for him. But, I want to see how he finishes out this season, and this will be a great test for him against a team that's really good defensively. Carl, the one thing from last week's game, and hopefully it gets worked out a little bit, but there seemed to be a little, from at least the post-game pressers and then the Monday pressers and everything else, there was some miscommunication on throws and big spots in the game. A couple of Wan'Dale Robinson late in the game. How surprised were you that some of that stuff existed, considering, or is that just part of the growing pains of a rookie quarterback?
I think it's part of the growing pains. Veteran quarterbacks miss a few reads every once in a while. Normally when the veteran misses a read or the route was wrong, you'll know right away whose fault it was. But I think you saw the Wan'Dale situation. Obviously, you saw the Jalin Hyatt interception, which I still think the ball was thrown inside, further inside. But they're all learning, and they just got to get on the same page. They got to keep practicing. This is the quarterback learning his receivers, right? He's thrown enough footballs to Wan'Dale Robinson to know where they both should know where they should be. And there were 2 errant ones that were great opportunities. The one to Jalin Hyatt wasn't a great route, but is that the route that Hyatt normally runs? And they just don't work together, right? Now, the expectation is that the receiver is supposed to be where he's supposed to be. And if the quarterback's thrown to a spot, that one looked like the defensive back read it the whole way, though. Basically sat on it and just watched it. And once the ball was out of his hands, there's no way that ball was not going to at least be broken up. So there's some tweaking they have to do there as well. Even if, Hyatt runs the right route or a more precise route, does the ball get completed? Does that ball need to be thrown a little bit, not so inside? I don't know. It just looked awful. And Hyatt did not run a great route, so let's just not sugarcoat it. But if you're talking about, just a connection of the receiver to quarterback, it didn't look great beyond Hyatt. There were some opportunities missed by him. Obviously, you had 2 key drops, 1 major drop by Darius Slayton. The touchdown, was a great opportunity missed, but the must-have it, got to have it.
Do you think, we're just talking about Hyatt here for a second, it certainly feels like, Carl, and this is sports reporter lingo here, but it feels like the kid just needs a change of scenery. I mean, he's a great kid. He's very pleasant to be around, in our interactions with him, but it just seems like it's all stuck in the mud for him, and maybe going somewhere else and a different perspective on things will unlock him. Can that happen for a player, you think?
Absolutely, happens all the time. And I will stand by. I think Jalin Hyatt has really good hands for a receiver. I think he's a pure catcher of the football. But he's going to, in order for him to grow, he's going to have to go somewhere where he gets to practice reps, he gets to practice coaching, and he's going to have somebody stay on him to help him refine his game. He didn't have the success in college at the SEC level, and walk out of there as the best receiver in college football and become what he has become today. I think he just needs, like you say, he needs to change the scenery. He needs to continue to work. He needs to do his part. But that's only going to happen with a different opportunity and a different look. He's an NFL wide receiver, folks. So, but he's got work to do, no doubt about it. And I think Mike Groh is an excellent wide receiver coach, evidenced by when you get the players that went down that they have and they still get production every week. But with Hyatt, he's not getting all the practice reps. So the mental reps, he knows where he's supposed to be, but he ain't running it the way he's supposed to run it. And he's a hardworking kid. He's not a dummy, contrary to what people think. But it's guys like him, guys like Evan Neal, they'll go and they'll get in a different environment, and you'll start to see that these guys can play. They were a lot better than we thought they were. Evan Evan changed positions. I thought he had a great camp for a kid who changed positions. His opportunity wasn't there, and so he's kept himself healthy. He'll go somewhere and play because you know what, Bob? Bobby Hart's still in football. Bobby Hart got on the field with the Chargers last week. Evan Neal is much better than Bobby Hart on a bad day. So he's going to be
at the guard position. I would say yes.
Yes, and that's Evans. That's going to be where he is. And so he'll get a chance somewhere else too. Those kids just got to focus and believe in their ability to play the game. But they got work to do, both. But Jalin Hyatt certainly has work to do. I would not, and every time I see him, I say, don't lose confidence in yourself. Just got to keep working. And what happens with players and coaches that have a lot of injuries at a position, they're trying to get the guys that are going to play coached up. And then you got to do your part too. And he knows where he's supposed to be, but the routes aren't where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that the practice window opened up for Evan Neal, Josh Azudu, who I thought had a really good camp, and then got injured and then got kind of buried on injured reserve. And, it's just interesting because you're right. We're going to be talking, Giant fans will be chattering about some of these players next year when they're playing somewhere else and they're actually playing.
Yeah.
And
look, Bob,
it's going to happen.
It is what you see, right? But when they go to another environment, you'll see that, okay, they're NFL football players and they just didn't work out with the Giants. And some of them, I could, and you and I have been around this thing long enough. We know if a guy can play the game or not, right? And then we know what bad football players look like. They're going to be bad wherever they go. I don't think that's the case with Jalin Hyatt. I don't think that's the case with Evan Neal. I think both of those guys, if they get another opportunity, when they get another opportunity, you'll see it differently. But you can't stop everything you're doing at this point and just keep teaching Hyatt, this is how you got to run the route. We need you to do this. They emphasize it, and the guys that get it right, they catch footballs. The guys that don't, they get pulled out of the game and because they cost an interception. Evan Neal just could not crack because Greg Van Roten battled him all through camp. And Van Roten said, it's mine. Runyon said, it's mine. And then you got Marcus Bowe who says, hey, I'm here. I'm here to stay. So Evan's a big body. He's athletic. He's going to be a guard in this league. And I just hope Philadelphia doesn't go get him and turn him into what they did with the kid from the Jets. Yeah.
Yeah. Another kicker.
But I would be happy for Evan, but I wouldn't be happy as a Giants fan.
No. That's the last thing. That's the last thing any of us Giant fans could take right now. It's another Giant going to Philadelphia and suddenly becoming a really good player. Another kicker this week, which Younghoe Koo missed the 2 field goals last week, so he gets sent packing as of this recording. Like whoever, you never know. Like, was this a move for roster spots and salary cap and everything else, and he's going to get signed back? But as of right now of this recording, it's Ben Saul's turn. He's a rookie out of Pittsburgh. Was a good kicker for the Pitt Panthers, was on Atlanta's practice squad, was in camp with the Steelers. So he's going to get an opportunity here for the Giants as of this recording on Thursday morning. But that's something that has to get squared away moving forward, Carl. No matter who the next head coach is, you can't be going through 4 kickers and having all these injuries that they have and the inconsistency. And look, I'm not – Koo's got to make the kicks, and that thing that happened in New England, I think, is hard to overcome something like that.
Yeah.
But also, you got to remember the operation too, right? You had Cameron Johnston holding last week. Gillen's normally the holder, but like that whole thing has to.
Did they practice together? They practice in pre-game. When you know there's going to be a change, it's not like they throw a guy in there cold. They take snaps.
No,
kicker articulates
but you know
that.
it's different in a game.
Yes, but Bob, it is not. It's different. But the ball didn't fly up high. He didn't roll it back to the holder. The ball was there. I'm not going to comment any further on that kick in New England because it's traumatizing. I've never seen anything like it. But I will say this relative to kickers. And, our colleague Tiki Barber doesn't trust rookies, right? I don't trust kickers. You've got to, kickers are one of these deals. You got to keep proving it. And we went through a stretch of that when Bill Parcells was a coach. And it was a revolving door on a daily basis until he could trust that the guy on game day could make it. And there's a lot said about the Giants front office, Joe Shane, and their player personnel folks or pro personnel folks. I think the biggest bane of their existence, and people have a lot of opinions, and I'm staying away from all of that. But I will point out that the kicking situation has continues to bite them. And I don't think they ever imagined that this would be a focal point on this team after doing so many other things. You got a defense that you've invested a lot of money in that's underperforming, but the darn kicking situation that's costing you games and you can't get it right. Mr. Can't Get Right is all over the building, and they can't go into a season without having a true competition with kickers and having a complete trust because, Gano was injured last year and kind of played around with him. Injured the year before. You got to, and he's consistent when he's consistent, but he's consistently hurt too. And it's unfortunate. It's not his fault, but that's what happens. And when you got to win games and you count on the kicker to be one of the guys that could do it for you, it just hasn't worked out well for Joe Shane and those guys when they look at that position.
I mean, think about it. I mean, the kick. Obviously, the Giants kicked a lot of field goals in 22. Gano was phenomenal.
Yep.
But you think about, again, I hate to do this, but I like to trace lines sometimes. And if you trace the line back to the home opener against the Dallas Cowboys to start the 2023 season, and the first drive of the game, the Giants marched down the field against the Cowboys. MetLife Stadium's going crazy. They've got the ball inside the 10. They're going to score a touchdown on the first drive of the season. And here we go against the Cowboys. And then a penalty, a sack, a bad snap. And next thing you know, Gano's kicking a field goal that gets blocked and returned for a touchdown. He hurts his knee. Evan Neal gets hurt. And it's like the Giant kicking situation has never been healed since the opening day of the 23 season.
Well, yeah, and they lost, was Andrew Thomas to his hamstring, wasn't it?
Yeah, Andrew Thomas got hurt chasing it too. And then Gano got hurt in Washington on a kickoff return by Eckler last year that didn't even count because of a penalty.
Right.
Think about how many games in 23, 24, and 25 the kicking situation has hurt the Giants. Like, if you had one of these better kickers in the league, records would be completely different.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think they would make the argument, well, some of that stuff was freaking, but it happened. And it only keeps happening to the Giants for 3 straight years. So if there's one thing about this front office that I would openly say that they just can't get right, is that kicking situation. That's the one that's biting, in my opinion. That's the one that really sticks out to me, is that they just didn't get that figured out.
And it's cost them. Koo was once a Pro Bowler, but as you know, being around this for a long time, kickers are hot until they're not. And usually when they go cold, then all of a sudden, like, you sit there and you say, how is a guy this? Remember Vanderjack with Indianapolis? How good that guy was. And then all of a sudden, they just fall off the proverbial cliff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a golfer who can't keep it on the fairway all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then they grind to try to find that sweet spot in their swing that they once had. And that's why these guys change teams like every year.
Yeah, well, in the middle of a season, it's hard to grind to get it back while costing your team games. You only play a finite amount of games in football. If you're a basketball player and your free throw percentage falls off, you can work your way through that. You got a lot of games to figure that out. In the NFL, you don't have a lot of games and you don't have a lot of opportunities to get it fixed. So that's the one area that just never got right.
Carl, just kind of in wrapping up here, I want to see Brian Burns get a couple more sacks. He's been kind of stuck at 13. Not that he's not doing his job.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are taking part in the party. And, Abdul Carter had a really good game last week.
Mm-hmm.
He's going against a team this week that does have a better offensive line than Washington, and I'm not taking anything away from what he did last week as far as disruptive. But I think these next 3 games are huge for him, just as far as stacking. We always talk about stacking. And can he stack? Now, that doesn't mean he's going to get another sack or 2 sacks this week and a couple forced fumbles. But can he influence the game, which he did earlier in the season in other games where he definitely made his presence felt. But to be more consistent, snap in and snap out. I think last week was his first complete game, so to speak.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to see what he can do here over, especially this week against a good Vikings team when it comes to offensive line play and stuff like that.
I don't have any doubt that if they have a plan for Abdul Carter like they did last week, he's going to have.
Why wouldn't they have a plan?
Well, there's a lot of why wouldn't they's that go out throughout the season, but why didn't they to begin the season? But that's a whole nother discussion for postseason. But if they have a plan for him, there's no doubt in my mind he's going to be very impactful. He's been impactful without a plan. He just hasn't been able to complete the sack. He's way up there. I call him in almost sacks and pressures. He's one of the league top leaders in almost sacks. He's got a special talent. They're going to have their hands full with him. But when the Giants create a plan and they move him around, he's a problem for offensive linemen, especially on the interior. The key is making sure with the plan for him that you can incorporate Dexter and Brian Burns. If they can be included in that plan, then you got a whole disruptive trio on any given day. But you cannot give up a lot of yardage in the run game. You've got to create some third and long situations where that you can do these types of things. If you can create some run stops, this is some negative plays, the Giants should be able to impact J.J. McCarthy.
I hope so. It'll be fun to watch them play some good defense against a team again that over the last two games they've played very well offensively, but over the balance of McCarthy's starts this year, I mean, he's last in the NFL in completion percentage in his 6 starts, and he's last in passer rating. And can you kind of get him back to what his norm is?
Yeah.
And listen, I don't want to belabor this. We talked about this a lot earlier in the year. It's gotten you some stink eye, but I'm waiting for a Dexter Lawrence type game. I don't know if we're going to see one this year, but they certainly could use because they can certainly use him to be more impactful in these games because, as you well know, and quarterbacks, they can, unless the guys on the edge get completely whipped, but if they get at least a little bit of protection to start, what do quarterbacks hate the most? Pressure in the middle. The middle. So,
well, I think they're going to, again, this comes down to a plan. If they can incorporate how they use Dexter, Brian, and Abdul Carter in some stuff together, you'll see a disruptive Dexter Lawrence. If they are just doing the basic stuff, I don't think you're going to see a disruptive Dexter Lawrence because he's going to see all the double teams and nobody's pulling double teams off, and it's just a whole thing. But we all hope to see that. We all know that it's there. We'll see what happens. I would love to see that. I would love to see them just finish a game, right? Finish out where you can look at the stat sheet and say, yes, we dominated and we won. Not, man, this is the best defensive game we've played all year and we still lost because we couldn't make a play when we had to have it. But the disruption that I'm looking for, and I don't know, I think Big Blue VCR posted it. I want to see the disruption on the goal line. It just seems like when the teams get down there, the Giants don't really have that we're going to keep them out of the end zone mentality. That's why I want to see good goal line play. If they get down there, deny them, hold them to a field goal. But listen, man, I'm hopeful for this defense. I am. I just want to see them execute, focus, got to have it moments, be that defense that comes up with the turnover, be that defense that comes up with the big sack. Yeah, I would love to see the big fella get going, man. It's just been okay. A lot of factors involved in that. Conversation for another day. But at the end of the day, we want to see them do really well.
Yeah, I mean, goal-to-goal situations, teams have scored 17 touchdowns in 23 trips. 5 field goals. They've only stopped a team once on downs. That was it. So it's been pretty porous, and Minnesota is just as bad in goal-to-goal defense. Minnesota is really good in red zone defense, but if you get it first and goal, they're a sieve too. Yeah, you mentioned Big Blue VCR. I love that guy's stuff. He was putting a lot of stuff because it's Vikings week. Was it Gary Reason's birthday this week too? Because I saw some Gary Reason stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's, I don't know. Sometimes I watch that stuff and it's like I get a little depressed because it's like, oh my gosh, that's what we all grew up watching and seeing on a weekly basis of you guys just terrorizing people. I know he put that one up of the Cowboys and Aikman with a goal-to-goal situation, and he handed it off to the running back, and the Banks was like a 4-yard loss. There was Reasons flying around. Like, man, I think everybody watching this podcast is like, damn, I missed that.
It's out there. Big Blue VCR has it. And it'll let you reminisce.
I think fans want to see it in the stadium live.
Yeah, I know, but they'll let you reminisce a little bit. You can always play it back and back and back. But I'm just hopeful for this team, with this defense. Last week, they had a plan. It looked better. Statistically, they were better. But from an execution standpoint, they were no better. It was the same thing that bites them, the lack of attention to detail when you need it most. And I want them to really be able to get that part of it right.
Well, if you need like a fun little Christmas gift, and Christmas, obviously it's not going to come in time, but like if it's like someone that you want to have a little fun with, and it's one of these late, I got you a little something for Christmas. It came in a little bit late.
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
How do we like to end this thing? Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Believe in Giants.
Believe in Giants.